You know, I'm obviously having a little bit of a bad breakup with the Republican Party, but it's not with Republican voters. It is with the leadership of the party. And man, Donald Trump at CPAC gave me so much hope, and the fact that he had so much support from the audience there, it gave me so much hope that this was going to go in the right direction. And I think I wanted it too much. You know, I wanted it too much before the election. I had basically already decided to join the party and to try to play in that space before the election. I thought it was the right thing to do in terms of making sure people were coming into the party that were part of the MAGA movement, all that good stuff. And there was always a little voice in the back of my head that said, this is a bad idea, this is a bad idea, this is not going to work out, it's not going to work out. But I was so excited to see the response to Trump at CPAC that I bit the bullet and I did it anyway, and it was absolutely not the correct choice for reasons that I explained in the previous video on this channel. But I want to make this clear. My issue with the Republican Party is entirely with the feckless, cowardly leadership that hates their own voters, that will stab their own voters in the back and betray them without ever giving it a second thought, that will not fight for the things that their voters want them to fight for, that will not run the candidates that their voters want, that will not support the candidates that their voters want. And it is almost a completely useless party without Donald Trump at the head of it. And I'm not going to go through all the news that has led me to this place. I'm not going to talk about how they're actually rallying around Liz Cheney right now, because God knows, in the state of Wyoming, they couldn't find another viable Republican. It had to be Liz G.D. Cheney as the only choice for the Republican Party in Wyoming. No, they had to rally around Liz Cheney. So things like that. Things like the House Republicans meeting in Florida to discuss their policy strategy without inviting Donald Trump or even acknowledging his flipping existence. Things like that. And so, you know, I had a day today of kind of like railing on Twitter about all of these things and really trying to push people to do something about it until I just finally said, all right, this isn't like going to work out. And, you know, I think it's okay to fail sometimes. I think it's okay to try things and fail as long as you learn from the experience and you learn what you want to do, or better yet, what you don't want to do. But here is the idea that's just, you know, I can't get this out of my head. And it's kind of subbed up in this Twitter exchange I have with James Darien. He said, I have a problem with Republican voters because they're the ones who ceded their representation to the RINOs and the establishment in the party. Too many uninformed people voting only for people they think will win. And James is absolutely right. Republican voters need to start voting and voting as if they are comfortable losing if they don't get the right candidate. And that's what I responded by. I retweeted this and I said, the minute the Republican voters stop saying, well, they're better than the Democrats, is the minute they take back control of the party. Listen, the reason that the Republican Party has such god-awful leadership is because the Republican voters allow them to. And you can honestly make the same argument of the Democrats. To be really honest, like, you know, it's not something I speak a lot about on this channel, but I do keep track of the fact that the Democrats are having their own little infights right now. The progressives hate the Biden administration. The progressives hate AOC. They hate Nancy Pelosi. They hate everything that's going on right now. So the Democratic Party is having their own little tiff. They don't like their leadership either. And frankly, the same advice could apply to them. If you aren't willing to lose when you play the game, then you aren't really playing to win. That's what it comes down to, is you have got to be willing to lose to make the changes that you want to make. The decision that I've come to, and this has not been a decision that I came to immediately. It's not been a snap judgment that I came to out of nowhere. This is actually something I've thought a lot about. This is the question that I've been asking myself. Is it better to lose in 2022? Is it better to lose in 2022 than it is to win with feckless RINO leadership? because I think those are the two decisions. I really do. I think, and I've said this before, I do think some good candidates are going to come to the front of the pack in 2022. There are some candidates that I have an awful lot of hope for and a lot of optimism with, and I really hope they get it done. I do. But I think for the most part, what we're going to see is the Republican Party electing the same old candidates that we all hate, and the voters are going to vote for them, not because they like them as candidates, but they're going to vote for them specifically because, well, they're not the Democrat. They're better than the Democrat. We don't really like them. It's a protest vote. We're going to complain to our party leadership about how much we hate this person before we vote for them for Senate for 6 years. But we're going to vote for them anyway. If you want to win, if you ever want to take your party back, by winning, I don't mean necessarily winning by numbers, because if you vote in RINO candidates, they're only going to side with the Democrats who are going to look for ways to compromise when they don't necessarily have to or shouldn't. If you're only going to do that, you haven't really won. You haven't won anything if you just vote in a bunch of people who hate you and are going to betray you at the first possible moment. If you really want to win, if you really want to take back the party and demand that the leadership do the right thing, then you need to be willing to lose. You need to be willing to say, if you don't listen to us, if you don't listen to us and do what we want you to do, then we are not going to give you our vote. Because every single time that you vote for the candidates you hate, simply because they are not the Democrat, you are giving them positive reinforcement. This is basic. This is like training your dog, right? The dog does something correct, the dog gets a treat, the dog gets a pat on the head. If the dog does something bad, they get told no, or they get whacked with a newspaper, or whatever it is, right? If the dog does something good, they get positive reinforcement. If the dog does something bad, they get negative reinforcement. It's really simple, right? Same with kids. Same with any sort of creature that you are trying to get to behave a certain way. You give positive reinforcement when they do good things. You give negative reinforcement when they do bad things. What has happened in the Republican Party is that the party itself, the voters, are giving positive reinforcement to the leadership when they do bad things, when they make crappy decisions, when they sell their voters out. Their voters say, oh, that's okay. Maybe next time. Better than the Democrats. No! Every single time you're doing this, you're giving them positive reinforcement for bad behavior. You have to be willing to lose. You have to be willing to draw the line in the sand and says, enough is enough. We have now had a leader. We now know the type of leader we want, and that leader was Donald Trump or someone in that vein. And that is what we want. And if you do not give us that type of person, then we are going to tell you no. And if we tell you no, that doesn't mean we're going to begrudgingly vote for whatever RINO candidate you want to put in front of us. It means you're going to lose. It means you're going to lose. Listen, I am on the path right now of mutually assured destruction with the Republican Party. There's a very specific reason that I am railing on the Republican Party and making it a point to leave in the most public possible way that I can. Because I do not believe that the Republican Party has any hope of winning, never mind 2022. I'm talking about the big one in 2024. I do not believe they have any hope of pulling that off whatsoever unless they draw back the voters like me, the walkaways, the moderates, the centrists, the liberals that voted for Trump. I don't think the Republican Party has any shot in hell of winning the presidential election in 2024, and probably, frankly, they're not going to do too well in 2022 without people like me. So I am perfectly willing. I'm going to piss off a lot of Republican voters doing this, and I understand that, but I am perfectly willing to put us on a path of mutually assured destruction by saying, I'm not going to vote for your RINO candidates. And worse yet, not only am I not going to vote for your RINO candidates, but I'm actively going to campaign against them. And not only am I going to do that, I'm going to try to peel away your voters and convince them not to vote for them either. Because that is the only way that we end up with solid candidates. And we need the Republican Party to be an actual functional thing. it actually needs to be a functional thing, right? It's not functional right now. It's not serving the voters. And so I am perfectly willing, whether you like it or not, to put us on that path where, like, if you're not going to give us the types of candidates we want, you're not going to get my votes, and I don't care if we lose. I don't care. I think losing will be the very best thing for us. Sometimes you have to lose a battle in the short term to win the war in the long term. What Republican voters want to do is they get scared and they say, oh, I don't want to lose. Like, the RINO is still better than the Democrat. No, the RINO is not better than the Democrat. The RINO only ensures that you only have RINO candidates from here on out. You have to make them lose. You have to make it hurt. You have to teach them a lesson not to do it again. And it's not until you're willing to do that, it's not until you're willing to take that hit, that anything changes. You say, Carlin, the Democrats are leading us down to socialism. Well, that may be. That may be. But you're not going to fix it with the way things are now. The way that the Republican Party was playing this right now is an absolute losing strategy. So you're not going to fix it this way. You might as well course correct and give them the incentive that they need to get back on track. And that's my thoughts about the entire situation. I gotta tell you guys, I've never felt more free. I will tell any Republican candidate that I don't like to go F themselves. I'll tell the party to go screw, and I will feel perfectly happy about it, because it is exactly the thing that happens, or that needs to happen rather, to put things back on the right track. All right. Those are my thoughts. Tell me what you think in the comments. No, really, I want to know what you think too. If you like this video, I hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel, giving it a thumbs up. Although I'm sure many of you have already given it a thumbs down, and that's fine too. But if you liked it, turn on those notifications, share it out to your friends. And again, I really do want your feedback here. Change my mind. Change my mind that it is a worse idea. Change my mind that it's a bad idea to lose in the short term if it means winning the war. All right, guys, that's all I have. I'll see you soon.